Hello and welcome back to Rule the Game. This video is all about madness. I will show you how to play Wonderland's War, a game by Ben and Tim Eisner, Ian Moss, and Manny Trembley. This game is for 2 to 5 players. It lasts about 25 minutes per player, and it's recommended from age 13. A few notes before we get started here. I decided to make an extra video for the game setup so that this video doesn't get too long. You'll find the link below and also up here in the corner where you can click on it and have a look at how to set up the game if you want to play for the first time. Otherwise, I'll just show you how to win the game, what is the objective of the game, then how to play the game, and there are hints for your first game at the end. Please note that I will not cover the 2-player version. For that, you will have extra rules, and you find those in the rule book towards the end. And also, I will not explain every single card that comes up in this game. The cards have text on them in certain cases, and the text is very self-explanatory, so I don't think there's a need to explain it here. Before we get started also, please go and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you back here on this channel. But now, without further ado, let's get started with how to win Wonderland's War.
Rule the game.
In Wonderland's War, you're going to win victory points throughout the game. In each round, and there are 3 of them during the game, you will win victory points if you win some of these battles. During the battle phase, there will be 5 battles happening. There are 5 regions, and in each region, there will be a battle happening if there are people in this region. And at the end of the battle, the winner will win as many points as it says here on these point icons, where the first number is for the first round, second for the second round, and the third number for the third round. The player who comes in second in a battle will win half of the points mentioned here. So this is how you're going to get a bunch of points throughout the game. In addition to that, you'll be getting points from your castles that you might have in some of the regions. Per castles, you get typically 3 points. However, you'll be able to upgrade those points to 4, 5, or even 6 points per castle. And last but not least, each player will be getting quest cards during the game, in which you can get 3 victory points during a battle phase when you reach a certain condition, but at the end of the game also you can get 3 more victory points by completing a quest, and if you get the feat and the quest accomplished of this card, you get another bonus of 3 points. So for the quest you can get a total of 9 points. So it's the battles, the castles, and the quests that will give you points, but unfortunately you will also collect some of these shards, and each of these shards will be a minus point. So you'll deduct these shards from the total of points that you had from all these from the battles and the quests and so on. And you'll be tracking your points around the board where you have the numbers of victory points, and whoever has the most victory points will win the game. In case of a tie, the person with the least number of shards here left at the end of the game will win the game. And if you're still tied, then it's the player who has the most figures still on the board at the end of the game. Are you confused? Then let's continue with the gameplay so that you understand where these points can come from. Wonderland's War is played in 3 rounds. In each round, you'll be playing first a tea party, and then you go into the battles. Since the battles will give you all the points, I will start explaining to you first how the battles are played, and only afterwards I'll show you how the tea parties are played, which are there to set up the battles. I set up a board here the way it could look like after the second tea party. So round 2, which you can actually, by the way, also see up here. Up here the tea party is kind of empty now in the meantime, but here, round 2. And as you can see, in the 5 regions, we already have a bunch of leaders. Here's Alice, here's the Red Queen, here's the Mad Hatter. We also have some Wonderlandians, like Humpty Dumpty here, or the March Hare here. And then we have supporters, which are these figures here. We have some castles, and that's about it. Now, as you can see, this board is way too big for my table. So I'm struggling here to actually show everything that we have here, which means that I'm going to be playing Alice, but I had to put Alice's board here in the middle of the table, so you won't really see these regions where these battles will play out. But I need to show you here this board where the battle is going to be happening for Alice. Now, as you can see also, there is this starting battle standee here that is in this region. It will move in every single round to a different region. And so battles are then played first in this region where the battle standee stands, and then in clockwise order from region to region until we reach the region that is just before the battle standee. I will now first show you how we would play a battle here in the Meadow of Living Flowers. Now, as you can see in this region, we have Alice with a supporter of hers, and we have here a castle with a supporter of the Red Queen. So in this region, there will only be battling Alice against the Red Queen. The Mad Hatter, who is over here and has supporters here, there, and over here, has nothing over here, so he will not be able to participate in this battle. What we do first in each battle is we check what the starting strength of each player in this battle will be. Supporters have no strength. However, the leader, which is in this case Alice, but could also be here the Red Queen or the Hatter, the leader has a certain leader strength. The leader strength is shown here on the player's card down here with this little token. Currently the token covers the number 3, so Alice has a battle strength of 3. So we take this little cube up here on the battle track and we move the cube here to the number 3. The Red Queen has a castle. Castles have a battle strength of 2. So the Red Queen gets to place her battle tracker here. Before we start the battle, the Mad Hatter, who is not in the region, now has the option to bet on one of the competitors in this battle. Each player has these wager cards, and on the other side of the wager cards, you have the different characters. Now, the Mad Hatter can, if he wants to, decide to play one of these characters face down in front of them. That's the person they bet on. At the end, they will get a reward if they win, if they have bet on the right person, but they will also lose something in case they have bet on the wrong person. So it's an optional move. So now we're going to start the battle. To play the battle, each player takes their bag with the tokens inside, shuffles it, and pulls out a random token from it. I pull out a 1, as you can see here. And so I'll place this 1 here on the active chips, and I'll move my token here up 1. Let's say the Red Queen has also actually pulled a 1, so they're still behind us. Next, we're going to pull again, because we want to continue this battle, and I pull a Madness chip. Now, as you can see on this Madness chip, it says that we're going to lose a supporter. Now, the Madness chips goes here, where you have the row of Madness chips, and you're going to lose a supporter. You can lose one of these supporters here, or if you had a Wonderlandian, for example, Humpty Dumpty the region, you can also pull Humpty Dumpty from the region. You cannot pull your leader. If your leader is in the region, your leader will stay there until the end of the battle, or until you lose them too. Now, I'm not going to move my tracker, but turns out the Queen got lucky, pulled a 1 again. So we're taking another turn. I'm pulling another 1. As you can see, this is a different token, but it still has a 1, so it goes here in the active chips, and we move our tracker by 1. The Queen has also pulled a 1. We decide we want to continue, because we still haven't won this battle. So we go and pull another token. And this time, we pull another Madness token. Now we're going to lose another supporter. Well, the problem here is we only have Alice left. And if we actually take this madness chip and we pull Alice, now we're out of supporters in this region. Only the queen still has a supporter, so the queen will win this region uncontested because it's only a queen left. The queen will then win the 6 victory points and pull them up here. What I can do as Alice, if I don't want to lose this battle, is that I could turn around this shield here, in which case the madness chip goes back into my bag and Alice stays in the region. Now I can do this only once because as you can see now, the shield is now broken, so I can't use it anymore. But it might be worth it because I still have Alice now in the region. I can continue with my fight. Had I already had a broken shield and I had played this madness token, then I still would have to pull Alice, of course, and I would have lost. I would have busted now. And in this case, what happens is that these chips that are here in the active chips will go down here to the exhausted chips. And up here, the shield gets turned around. And since I have busted, also up here, my battle tracker will go back to 0 because it's like as if I didn't participate in this battle. And the Red Queen has won automatically. Now, lucky for us, we still had a full shield. So as we took the madness chip, we flip it here around. We have a broken shield now. I put the madness chip back into the bag. So now I pull again because I still want to win this battle. And look at this, I pull a 3. I'll place the 3 here and I'll move my tracker by 3. The queen has decided to halt. The queen is not too scared to lose her supporter here because she knows what is in her bag and it's too likely that she's going to pull a madness chip, so the queen has stopped. That's the end of the battle. A battle ends when either all players have halted, they have all busted, or one player has reached here the end of the line, 25, or if the only active player left is also the one that's in the lead. Then this person, even if they want to keep playing, they're not allowed to keep playing anymore. The battle is done. Now, as you realize, we keep playing chips and they keep going here on this board, but your bag at some point will get a little empty and you want to refill that bag. Well, you can't. You will not be able to refill your bag until either we're done with all the battles around the table, or if you fill the row here of madness chips to the end. That can happen. You could have enough of the supporters in a region that you can kill them all off and you still reach down here and you still have supporters in there. For example, up here you see blue has 4 supporters. That might be enough to get to the end. And so when you get here to the end, then you'll actually refill your bag with all the madness chips that are here and all the chips that are exhausted chips here. They might even be from an earlier battle that you've played, but it's only the exhausted chips. It's not the active chips in case you're still playing a battle. Now, assuming you place this fourth madness chip and you actually bust it, in that case, what happens is that first the active chips go into the exhausted chips, and you'll take all the exhausted chips and the madness chips and put them back in your bag. Refilling your bag will not help you gain your shield back. You will only get your shield back if you bust. That's the only way to do this. Now you will see also that there will be special chips that you can have, not just these kinds of chips that we have here. And these special chips might give you special abilities, will give you additional points potentially and so on. Whatever effect they have, the effect is only on these chips right now. In this battle, there's no carryover for later. If you have chips that affect your opponents, then you can only affect opponents who are in this battle with you. Bystanders will not be affected by any of these chips. And if there's ever a question about which abilities get done first, busting is always the first. Madness chips, busting happens first. Second, it's the abilities that affect yourself. Third is the abilities that affect your opponents if you have any of these chips. And then if it's still unclear who is going to play what first, then it starts with the player who has the least victory points, and it continues in clockwise order. Should you have a Wonderlandian in a region, like Humpty Dumpty, then Humpty Dumpty will have its own card, and on the bottom of the card it tells you what its battle strength is. So you will move your battle tracker up to this number 5 in the beginning of the battle. So we're done with this battle, and now it's time to check out who's the winner. As the winner of the battle, you will now get a number of victory points corresponding to the round that you're currently playing. So in round 1, you'll get the number that's on the leftmost side here. Then the middle is round 2, and round 3 is all the way to the right. You'll also get to place a castle in the region where the battle just played, but you're only allowed to play one castle in this specific region. You cannot place a castle in any other region if you win the battle in this specific region here, unless you have a specific Wonderlandian that will tell you that you can place your castle everywhere. And so Alice gets the 6 victory points that we have here for the winner. If there's a tie for the highest points, then the tied players can decide if they either want to get the victory points or place the castle in the region. Now remember, the castles will be worth 3 points at the end of the game, at least. You might be able to upgrade this to even 6, as you can see here. The player with the second most points will get half of the victory points here. So in this case, 3. And if there are actually 2 players who are second, then they get half of that again, rounded up. In this case, it's actually 1.5, so rounded up to 2. If 2 players tie for having the most points, then there will be no second most player. It will be just those 2 players that have tied for the first. In an uncontested region, and that's the region where there's only one player and no other player, the only person in that region can decide if they want to put a castle in that region or if they want to have the victory points from the battle. Next, all players who battled in this region will check their quest card and check if they've actually achieved one of the feats here. But the feats always have to do with a condition that happens in a battle. If you fulfill the feat up here, you will then take your quest and you'll put it face up in front of you. Before that, it will always be face down in front of you. Face up means that you've now won these 3 victory points. You won't score them yet though. You won't do this until the end of the game. The objective at the bottom of the card, it says end game objective, so you also don't do it now. You'll do it later. Next, you might have some of your factions or Wonderlandians that you collected. So the Wonderlandians are clear, are those here. Factions are chips that you can also get during the game in an earlier stage. If you have any kind of chip or any kind of Wonderlandian that gives you additional points or something else at the end of the battle, you can now get it. Next, it's time to forge. Forging happens if a player has not busted and ended up on a field up here that has a forge on it. And for this, I need to move this board a little bit so that you can actually see. But now you can see up here, they're forge symbols. And if you end up on a forge symbol in your battle, you now get to forge. The other option, how you get to forge, is if you actually pull the forge token during your battle. If you've ended up on a forge symbol and you have a forge token, you can forge twice. Forging means that you'll take one of your active chips, and you always have to take one of the active chips, and you can place it now on one of these forging tracks. You always start on the leftmost space, and then you gain the rewards that it says. So what happens, for example, here is I could take any of these chips. I can even use the forge chips to forge, but I'll take the one here and I could place it, for example, here where I lose a shard if I had a shard. I can place it here where I increase my leader strength by 1. I can place it down here where I gain another supporter and I gain a quest, or I place it down here where I'll gain 4 victory points per castle that I have at the end of the game. At the beginning of the game, you've placed over here at the end of the tracks, you place these artifacts. These artifacts you'll gain once you've finished your whole row, then you can get the artifact. It's just like a token with the value of 3 and you put it in your bag. You also see that sometimes there's a symbol between 2 rows. This one you'll get whenever you cover the spaces above and below. In this case, you'll actually get an upgrade, which means you can take away one of these little things here, and then you'll get whatever this ability is for later. There's also a symbol here where you can get rid of a madness chip, or down here you get 4 victory points right away. Now I get to forge twice, so I could potentially put them both. I put the one here, increase the leader strength, and put one here, so that later on I get 4 victory points. I will not get extra tokens to replace those now in my bag. These will be lost for the rest of the game. I need to get other tokens later. Next, we'll go and look at who has wagered in the battle. If somebody has wagered correctly, they will now get a weak ally chip. Those are these chips that are on the sides that have this one little dot on the bottom. You can take whichever one you want. If you bet wrong, you'll take a shard on your board. That's a minus point. And last but not least, we now clean up the battle. All remaining active chips go down here to the exhausted chips, and up here we move the battle trackers back. As mentioned before, we do not put any of the exhausted chips back in the bag, nor do we empty this madness chip track here. And so we continue clockwise until we've fought all 5 battles. And at the end of all the battles, we'll do a cleanup. The cleanup happens by first rolling the shard die, and then moving the starting battle standee by however many shards it says clockwise, so 1, 2, 3. The red keep will be where we start the battles in the next round. Next, we'll all take our leaders and put them back here at the end of the table where they'll start another tea party. All the exhausted chips go back into your bag. Your madness chip actually stays, and you will not be able to turn your shield around. All the supporters that are still in regions will remain in the region. Same with the Wonderlandians. It's only the leaders that go up here to the top of the table. Then you'll have 3 Wonderlandian cards on the side of your table that you can select during the game, during that round. You'll discard all those 3 cards, and you'll actually put 3 new cards out that will be available then for the next round. And now we prepare for the next tea party. So we have now played the battle phase of the second round, and we are moving on into the third round, where we start the third round with a tea party. I'll show you how the tea party works. But first we have to clear the table to get ready for the tea party. So what we do first is we'll take all the cards from the second round, and we'll put the whole deck here to the side, and we'll take the cards from the third round. These are shuffled in the beginning, and we now place them here in all these empty spaces. For 2 or 3 players, we only cover all these spaces. For 4 players, you would cover here, and for 5 players, you cover this one too. The deck goes back here. The new tea party will now be started by the person who has the least victory points. And if 2 players tie for the least victory points at this point, it's the person who has the least supporters in total over all the regions. During the tea party, we're trying to make our deck better, or actually whatever we have in our bag, we're going to try to make it better by pulling resources. Each player gets to pull 4 cards from the tea party. After that, they will have to place their leader into one of the regions. The play then continues clockwise from the person with the least points. To get any resources from the tea party, players move their standee, their leader standee, to whichever card that they want. They take the card and they also take all the resources. Now there's several things that happen on these cards. For one, you get specific resources that you can pick. In this case, it's these 2 tokens with the 5 that you have on the side. You'll take them, you put them into your bag. This card, unfortunately, also has a shard die, which means I have to roll the shard die and then take as many shards as it shows me. In this case, it's 1 that I put with my player tableau. Up here, there's also always a number, which shows you a certain number of supporters that you can now place in any region. And in this case, it's a 1, so I'll place 1 of my supporters in the region of my choice. And if I don't have a supporter left anymore, which could happen in the 3rd round, you can take a supporter from anywhere and place them wherever you want to place it. In the 3rd round, you actually have a bunch of cards that only have 1 supporter on it, but you'll see that over here, for example, there are 5 supporters that you will get if you take this card. These 5 supporters now all have to go into exactly the same region. You can't split them up unless you have a special ability, which is actually the case for the Red Queen, but everybody else will have to place these 5 supporters now in one region. By the way, this card also means that you get to pick a weak token from any of these ally tokens that you can take on the side. A weak token, for example, could be the rose here with this 1 dot. You choose which one it should be. If you take a card like this, you'll actually get to place 3 supporters in one region and 3 other supporters in a different region. That's the only exception where you can place tokens in different regions. Cards like these will tell you that you can either take a Wonderlandian card, or you can do an upgrade on your player tableau. I've shown that before, that's on the left-hand side. These few things that you can do there. There are also cards that let you return your shield back into the unbroken form, and you can place a castle wherever you want to. Other cards will let you discard some of your madness chips. Or in this card, you can get rid of your shard. There are also some cards that let you increase your leader strength. If you take a card that lets you increase your leader strength, but you already maxed out, meaning you already have a leader strength of 6, instead you can now return a shard. And there are some corrupted cards. In corrupted cards, you'll definitely get the icon up here, so you'll definitely get a Wonderlandian. May it be a standee or 2 chips, depending on what Wonderlandian you get. But if you want this down here, the strong ally chip with the 2 dots, you will actually also have to roll the shard die. So this one you only get if you roll the shard die. Now, as I mentioned before, the Red Queen, for example, moves here, takes this card here, takes all the rewards, rolls the die, puts a supporter in a region, and then they take this card and keep it with them so that they can remember what tokens they actually took and put into their bag, so that later on, during the battle phase, they know what's in the bag, because they're not supposed to peek into their bag what's still there. You're supposed to remember what you got. Then it's the next player. They'll also move around. They go somewhere else, and they take another card. And as you see, the spaces that have now been emptied will not be refilled yet. Now, at some point during this moving around, a player will decide that, well, they actually are over here, but they want to have a card from over here. So if they go clockwise, they'll have to pass the head of the table. If you want to pass the head of the table, you'll have to roll the shard die. You'll get whatever shard it says here. You take it to your tableau, and then you refill the table with new cards. However, you only get to refill spaces where there's no card nor a leader. So in this case, the only card that you can actually place is this one here. And then you continue with the Mad Hatter to take whichever card you want, and so on. Everybody goes clockwise until you have your 4 cards, and at that point, if you've taken your 4 cards and it's your turn again, you'll take your leader and you place it in a region. That will be the region where that person then battles. And before we start the battle, every player will also get a madness token that they will also have to put into their bag, because they've been at a Mad Hatter's Tea party, they'll definitely get a madness token. And the person who has the most shards will actually have to take a second madness token, but they can return half of their shards that they have into the middle, and it's half rounded up. So you actually get rid of a bunch of shards, but you get another madness chip. And that will be the end of the tea party phase, and we'll move back into another battle phase in the last battle phase, actually, because it's round 3, so it's the last battle phase of the game. Now, if you've taken Wonderlandians or Wonderlandian tokens, then note that in this case you can turn around another Wonderlandian from the deck right away. If you run out of allied chips, then that's it for those allied chips. You'll have to take different allied chips. And if you run out of madness chips when you're supposed to take madness chips at the end of the tea party, then no player gets any madness chips. But the person who has the most shards also doesn't get rid of half of their shards that they have. And then at the end of round 3, at the end of the battle phase of round 3, you'll count the points of the battles properly as before. You'll then also count your castles in each region according to the points that your tableau shows. Either it's 3 points if you haven't forged anything on the castle track, or it's 4, 5, or 6 points per each castle. You'll then also check your quest cards here, and you'll see if you got the top. That will be if the cards face up, then you will get the top. If you have also completed the objective at the end of the game, then you get 3 points more, and if you have both fulfilled, you get 9 points in total for that one card. So it's 3, 6, or 9 points, or 0, which is also possible. And last but not least, you'll have the -1 point for each shard that you have. So let's do a quick recap of what happens in a round. First, we'll start each round with a tea party. The tea party starts with all of the leaders here at the head of the table. The person with the least victory points will start. They'll move their leader standee to whichever card where they want to collect the rewards. They take the rewards, next person's turn, until everybody has taken 4 cards. Once every person has taken 4 cards, then they'll move their leader standee into a region. They then pick up a madness chip, put it into the bag. For the person who has the most shards, they'll pick up a second chip, and they'll get rid of some of their shards. And then we'll start the battles in the region where we have the starting battle standee. We'll play these battles by taking tokens out of our bags until we either halt or we bust, or everybody's bust. And then we go through each of these battles. We always get points at the end of each battle. And once we've played all 5 battles, then we prepare the next tea party. Round 2, we do this again. Round 3, we'll play the same thing again. At the end of round 3, you'll count your points. And here are some hints for our first game. Now, this game is asymmetric. So every single figure in this game has different powers. You'll see on your board what your powers are, what your special abilities are, and you have different special abilities that you can enable during the game. It's part of the game. It's what makes it also quite interesting, because you never quite know how the others will react, because they have special powers that are different from yours. Then, of course, to win points, it is very important that you win a bunch of battles. And the battles give you more and more points the further on this game proceeds. And so you need to figure out, even already in round 2, where you want to fight your battles. Because remember, after every battle phase, we leave the figures, the supporters, sometimes even the Wonderlandians, in a certain region, we don't move them. And so your opponents might already have some figures in a region where you're going to want to go and battle next. And so you also have to set this up carefully in round 2 even to go and fight your battles in round 3. In round 3, many of the cards in the Tea Party don't really give you too many supporters that you can place anymore. Plus, you don't really have so many supporters in the first place. So there, it's important that you've already distributed your supporters well. Having said that, I mentioned earlier that you also get victory points for your castles, and you can only place 1 castle per region. So if you want to get lots of points from your castles, first you have to make sure that you have a castle in most of the regions, which means you're going to have to win these battles in this region somehow. Maybe try early on to get certain regions so that you have the other regions that are more powerful, to have more victory points in them, that you get them later in the game. But you try to get 3 to 4 castles out at least. And then remember that you can always forge your castles to have more victory points at the end of the game. So it's definitely worth doing this, but you need to have enough of these castles there so that the forging actually really gives you an advantage. Also, don't underestimate the benefit of becoming second. I know it doesn't sound like a fun thing to become second in a battle, but remember, if you become second, it still have the victory points that you can get. You can still go forge, you can still do a feat, so you have plenty of opportunities to get more victory points even in some cases by not winning than if you had won. Now you can't place a castle, that's true, but you have other options to get these points. And it's all way better than busting. Busting really is the worst of all because there's nothing you get out of busting. Also make sure that you don't just have 1 supporter in a region in round 3 especially, because it's going to be very difficult for you to do anything in that region if you have just 1 supporter. All you have to do is pull 1 madness chip and that supporter is dead and you busted. Having said that, in round 1, having just 1 supporter might be enough, especially if you find a region that is uncontested, where you can then win this area and either play a castle or get the victory points. I personally would say in round 1, if you're uncontested in a region, then place a castle so it's already there, and then you can go and fight your other battles in other regions. In general, the supporters, those little tokens, these little meeples, they feel like there's no real point to them. Why are we placing them? They don't have any strength. Think of them as insurance. They're there so that you can pull madness chips during the game. Every time you pull a madness chip, you still have a supporter there. And the more chips you can pull, the more points you will gain, and the more likely you are to win this region. So the more you play there, even though they don't increase your strength, the supporters will help you to really win a region by being your insurance. Then when it comes to the Wonderlandians, check what their abilities are. If you have a Wonderlandian that gives you most of its impact at the beginning of a battle, you might want to pull that Wonderlandian when the first madness chip comes and get rid of that Wonderlandian so that you can use the Wonderlandian later in a different region where you need the Wonderlandian to win another battle. Otherwise, if you leave the Wonderlandian until the end of the battle, it will be there, it will give you extra points at the end of the battle, but it will also stay there until the next battle phase. And then make sure that you leave the number of shards low in general, because remember, they're all minus points. So you don't want to get too many shards. Having said that, there might be some advantages to taking more shards, because remember, in the Tea Party, if you have the most shards, yes, you will get another madness chip, a second one, but you'll also get to discard half of your shards. and you round that up even. So you might get rid of a lot of shards in one go if you have the most shards at the end of the tea party. But of course, if you have more than double the shards of anybody else, that really isn't going to help you much. And there you have it. That is Wonderland's War. I hope you enjoyed the game. And if you enjoyed the video, again, please subscribe below. And as I mentioned in the beginning, and I'll post the link back up here again, and it's even down in the description, I will post another video with the setup section of this game so that you also figure out how to set up the game. I left it out here for time reasons, but it's there for you to help you figure out how to set up the game so that you can actually start playing this great game here. Thanks for joining, and I hope to see you back here soon.